Lisa, can I get one horchata espresso, por favor?
You want ice with that?
Ice! Grammy, amigos! Ice!
What is up, people? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is July 7th, 2025. Hope you all had a great extended happy birthday, happy Independence Day, America weekend. Hope you ate some burgers and some dogs. Hope you had a little tequila, perhaps, as Copal is being shipped currently. And hope you had a good time with friends and family and all that good stuff and celebrated, yes, the greatest country in the history of America. We lit an awful lot of fireworks in the backyard. Clyde almost lost an eye, but he is okay. Clyde's the dog, by the way. Everyone else was just fine. If you want to join us, guys, in the subscriber race to 3 mil, we're almost there. Get us there by the time I disappear on August 1st. Would you click subscribe on that thing? We need just about 1,000 of you a day for the rest of the month. We're right there. Just do it. Just don't make me plead with you anymore, for God's sakes. And we have a tremendous program for you because it was a great weekend. I'm very happy to be back in the office. It's good to see my people. It's good to be doing what I love doing for a living. And America is now 249 years old. We're rolling into 250, and there's a lot of good signs that good things are happening. I know there's a lot of panicans out there, a lot of people that want to keep you freaking out and worried about everything. But America is strong. We are making good moves right now, and that is what our show is going to be about today more than anything else. We also will talk about at the end of the show. Obviously, there's been this horrific tragedy in Texas with these, well, we'll get into it in a little bit. I don't want to start on a negative note. Let's just start positively. I thought this would really be a great way to kind of juxtapose how much things have changed and how quickly things have changed. You guys know I love that. I love showing you the old videos to see, because otherwise you forget like how bad things were or how different they were versus how they are now. So this is the July 4th celebration at the White House from a few days ago, juxtaposed with the year before when Joe Biden and his cadre of corrupt cronies were over there at the White House. All right, for the record, we didn't edit in the scary music. Someone on the internet did that, but just that feeling, just that right there, Trump and Melania. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to repeat the whole story because you guys have heard me tell it before. But when I met Trump for the first time at Mar-a-Lago after dinner with Junior, and he brought us over to the table with the president, and it was in the middle of that first impeachment, and we chatted with him. And the way I saw him and Melania react, with his hand on her hand on the table and kept calling her honey and sweetheart, like they do love each other. And just the difference between what we now know is like a functioning man as president of the United States with his wife fixing America versus the other thing. And remember that a year ago, when Joe Biden was up there for July 4th, probably not even knowing what day it was. That was only a week and a half after that horrific debate. They were still pretending that he was going to run at the time. Like that, doesn't that feel like a lifetime ago already? And then you had Hunter Biden there, like touching his face like on a Coke binge and everything else, that we have just been through all of that. And just a bit more on that, because I really do want to drive the point home that things are really changing for the better. Here's Joe Biden last year getting July 4th confused with Christmas, as one would do.
And we give thanks to our Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, the extraordinary President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Ho, ho, ho. Happy Independence Day.
Ho, ho, ho. Happy Independence Day. Okay, and then we'll just continue just a bit more, because again, this guy could have been president. He wasn't even president then, but they could have faked it and installed him one way or another, or it could have been Kamala, which probably would have been even worse. And in either case, we'd have no idea who the president really was. But later that day, and again, this is only 368 days ago, here's Joe Biden thinking that he was going to beat Donald Trump in 2020.
I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020. By the way, we're going to do it again in 2024.
Guys, I know it's a little gratuitous and it feels like piling on at this point. Now he's got other health issues, which, by the way, they hid from us and was a real scandal and everything else. But I just want to put that there. I wanted to start the show with that because that's what we were dealing with only a year ago. And now America is back, and we're going to get into the big, beautiful bill, and we're going to get into some of the foreign policy stuff and a bunch more throughout the show. But we are back. We know who's in charge again. It doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect, but like there's some semblance of normalcy setting in again. And it's important to just note that that is good and right and just, and we do deserve it because we're decent human beings. Well, you watching this are decent human beings. I'm a decent human being. But here are a video of crazed leftists in New York City protesting America's birth over the weekend.
We're also seeing some protests today that's going to be happening around the city, including this one. Now, this group of people dressed in black.
Man, I really wish we had a Blue Chew ad right now because that is the type of screaming that will make you be unable to maintain an erection. These are crazy people. They're out there. We know there's a mental health condition, but mourning America and the screaming and everything else. And we do know that there is a disconnect. I mean, there's a lot of psychological evidence about this. Jordan Peterson's been talking about it for a while, that generally speaking, females who lead with their feelings more tend to be a bit crazier when it comes to some of these political, cultural things, but not all the time. There's a guy by the name of Zohran Mamdani. You know him. He is a full-on absolute communist. He only became an American citizen in 2018, but he did win the Democratic primary about a week and a half ago and might be the mayor of New York City. God have mercy on our souls. Someone found this on the Twitter. Check this out. He put this up on June 17th, 2020. There he is in the middle of COVID. So he's got, I assume that's why he has a glove on, although let's just give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. Flipping the bird, giving the finger to a Christopher Columbus statue and saying, take it down. So look, while we have a lot of good things happening in this country, I think what's happening right now is, we've had this sorting of the country. We've had this red-blue sorting of the country, and depending on what state you live in, it's very different than other states and all of those things, right? You could basically call it the Florida-Cali divide if you want. But I think there's another sorting happening now, and this one is far more important. And to the backdrop of America rolling into her 250th year, where we're going to have, I think, a lot of celebrations and a lot of good things happening, we're going to see a certain set of people, the Mamdani-type people. Connor, put the image up again for just a second. The type of people who look at our founders, the type of people who look at Christopher Columbus, who risked his life to get us here, and feel that they're doing something edgy by flipping him off. Well, what are you doing here, Mamdani? If you think Christopher Columbus was bad by coming here hundreds of years ago, what are you doing here? You weren't even a citizen until 2018. Why don't you go back to Uganda? Maybe you should. Kevin O'Leary, you guys know Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. Here he is talking about how Mamdani will ruin New York City and perhaps the American dream altogether.
Now, what he's been doing, running around the streets of New York saying, free taxis, free subway, free buses for you, free everything. And of course, if you don't understand what that means long term, you might vote for him. They certainly are proposing that. And so this is a classic case of reading Atlas Shrugged. I got my kids reading it, and they're freaking out reading that thing, because that's exactly what it's proposing. You can't do this in an environment where there's competition of other states. The money just leaves. Right. The tax base leaves. The capital leaves. The developer leaves. The risk capital leaves. And you're left with a collapsing environment. New York City is it's a horrible message for the American dream. This guy is turning New York into the American nightmare. The money comes in, it flies right over New York City, and it lands somewhere else. That's the problem.
All right, so first off, I love the fact that he referenced Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and we absolutely, I just mentioned to Phoenix, I'm going to text him right after this, Yaron Brook, who used to run the Ayn Rand Institute, now he's independent, large, I think he's still on the board there. I haven't had him on for years. We're going to get him back on to discuss that, because the basic idea, I don't have to explain the entire story of Atlas Shrugged. It's an extremely long book. But the basic idea is once the government is involved and the cronies are involved and big government and big taxes, you will push all of the good people away. You will not be able to build railroads or anything else. So all of these people that say free everything, I've been thinking all weekend, I was thinking about this. Has anyone ever, I would love to figure this out, and we can do some research and let us know in the comments, has anyone ever that purports to hold these progressive ideals, so these Mamdani-like ideals, these Bernie Sanders, AOC ideals, has anyone that has fully believed in wokeness and Marxism and communism, have they ever built anything? Like, has any true business ever been built with those ideals? I don't think so. I think you get giant corporations that are built on the principles of capitalism, and then over time, unfortunately, they tilt, they allow wokeness to get in. That's my alien theory. Once it's in the system, it starts taking things over. So you could take a thing like Disney, which was built in the idea of creativity and ingenuity, and it was technologically ingenuitive, and then they had all sorts of great stories and all of those things, and it built a giant corporation, and it built parks and movies and all these different verticals, and then it went towards wokeness, right? And then it actually, when it went towards wokeness, what happened? Its bottom line started bottoming out, and then they've now tilted away from wokeness. But has any company, I mean, I guess you could have some like crazy, like psycho lesbian coffee shop in Seattle probably, but that doesn't even last very long. I want to know, has there ever been a successful institution that was built by progressives? And I suspect your answer is no. So free this, free that, free everything else. But Uganda, be kidding me, man. Go back to Uganda. That is not what we signed up for. And again, I think the reason I'm showing you the Mamdani videos to the backdrop of the July 4th stuff is this is America's year of choosing. That's where we're at. If our founders would have known, boy, 250 years later, put aside that a lot of people don't know that they're boys and girls and everything else, there's going to be somebody in the number one city in America who's going to try to run on the platform that would be the complete antithesis of everything that we founded this country based upon. They would be flipping their wigs. And they did actually wear wigs, so it works. Let's talk about quality of life, and then we will talk about the big, beautiful bill. Let me ask you about something. Have you heard about senolytics yet? Senolytics are a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're called one of the biggest breakthroughs of our time in promoting healthy aging and helping you stay in your physical prime. Qualia Senolytic has been a game changer in this field. Since taking Qualia Senolytic supplements, I've noticed higher energy levels, faster workout recoveries, and I just feel more productive and enthusiastic about life. Qualia Senolytic acts like pruning dead leaves off a plant. It removes senescent, dead cells, so your body's healthy cells can thrive. And the best part, you only have to take it 2 days a month. It's also non-GMO, vegan, and gluten-free, and carefully formulated so the ingredients work together for maximum impact. Plus, it comes with a 100-day money-back guarantee. New research on aging and longevity, including clinical studies on Qualia Senolytic, show that its 2-day rejuvenation regimen could be the key to unlocking better cellular health and revitalizing aging tissues. So if you're ready to resist aging at the cellular level, give Qualia Senolytic a try. Go to qualialife.com/Rubin for up to 50% off and use code Rubin at checkout for an extra 15% off. You can even find Qualia Senolytic at select GNC locations near you. That's QUALIA life.com/Rubin for an extra 15% off your purchase. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode. All right, so there was a bit of politics over the weekend. Let's start on July 3rd. This is on Truth from Donald Trump. It looks like the House is ready to vote tonight. We had great conversations all day, and the Republican House majority is united for the good of our country, delivering the biggest tax cuts in history and massive growth. Let's go Republicans and everyone else. Make America great again. So that was the plan. And then, of course, the Democrats stepped in. And what are Democrats good at besides sort of talking like this with their limp wrists and everything else? Well, they're very good at filibustering. We know this. We had a man from New Jersey. What the hell is his name? That guy, Cory Booker. They're all morphing into one person. That's why I can't remember any of their names. Cory Booker, who did a few weeks ago, as you know, spoke for 25 hours at the Capitol without urinating. And then a few days later, he did a little something on the steps of the Capitol. Very exciting. Well, this time they busted out Hakeem Jeffries, and Timu Obama managed to filibuster for 8 hours. That means he just spoke for 8 hours. He accomplished literally nothing, did not stop the bill from being passed. It's the exact same thing that Cory Booker did, that Chuck Schumer was I'm so proud of Cory for speaking for so long. This is what they do. It's just, it is bloviating. Google the word if you don't know it. They are bloviators at the highest possible level. Here is the end of Hakeem Jeffries, Team Obama, speaking for 8 hours, accomplishing nothing, but having a whole bunch of women behind him, very excited about the whole thing.
And so as I take my seat, I just want to say to the American people that no matter what the outcome is on this singular day, we're going to press on. We're going to press on. We're going to press on.
Pretty sure he's talking about the Lee press-on nails of a couple of those ladies. You see those big-ass nails? That cannot be natural. Well, he did talk for 8 hours, and the result of the vote was not what he wanted. Take a peek over here. The bill did get passed. 218 to 214. Should note the 2 Republicans voted against it, and they will definitely be on Donald Trump's shit list, Brian Fitzpatrick and Thomas Massie. Here is Speaker Johnson roasting Hakeem for his 8-hour bloviation.
The gentleman from Missouri. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Ronald Reagan said one time that no speech should be longer than 20 minutes, and unlike the Democrat leader, I'm going to honor my colleague's time and be a little more brief than that, all right?
All right, so the big, beautiful bill is here. Let's show you a little video of Donald Trump signing it, and then we'll get into some of the specifics, because I want to be fair about this. Obviously, there is a somewhat of a fight going on the right now. You have this sort of Elon wing of we want, as little government spending and as much debt reduction as possible versus the Trump wing, which is saying, hey, we want tax cuts, but we also want to accomplish things. That's the point of the bill. There's some tension there. So we'll get into the specifics on that in a second, but just here's Trump actually signing the bill over the weekend. He did this on July 4th. I think the only man in America who enjoys writing with a Sharpie more than me. It's hard to know what he's doing there with that thing. Anyway, the big, beautiful bill has been signed, and now bear with me. I'm even going to put my glasses on for this one. I'm doing the fake news man thing because I'm going to read to you a bit about the bill. It's a little lengthy, but we're going to try to get as many details in here so that when you get into an argument with your crazy cousin Karen over the weekend or whatever it might be, you will know some actual facts. This is from Grok. The one big beautiful bill signed into law by President Donald Trump on July 4th, 2025 represents a significant legislative achievement for his second term. Below are some of the major policy wins associated with this bill based on available info. 1, largest tax cut in American history. The bill delivers what is described as the largest middle-class tax cut in U.S. history, making permanent the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act provisions. This includes lower marginal income rates, an increased standard deduction up to $15,750 for singles and $31,500 for married couples in 2025, and a higher estate tax exemption from $13.99 million to $15 million for singles in 2026. Americans earning between $30,000 and $80,000 are expected to see tax reductions of around 15%, with an average tax cut of $2,600 per household in 26, though high-income households benefit more significantly, for example, $61,000 for the top 1%. 2, no tax on tips and overtime. A cornerstone of Trump's campaign promises, the bill eliminates federal taxes on tips and overtime pay, benefiting service industry workers and others reliant on gratuities or extra hours. These exemptions are temporary, set to expire in 2028. 3, border security and immigration enforcement. This legislation allocates approximately $350 billion for border security, including funding to complete 701 miles of primary border wall, 900 miles of river barriers, 629 miles of secondary barriers, and 141 miles of vehicle and pedestrian barriers. It also provides for hiring 10,000 new ICE agents, 5,000 customs officers, and 3,000 border patrol agents to support deportations of at least 1 1 million undocumented immigrants annually. 4, increased child tax credit. The child tax credit is permanently increased from $2,000 to $2,200 per child starting in 2025 with $1,700 refundable and is indexed for inflation. This provides relief for families, though some analyses note it does not fully benefit low-income households. 5, Trump savings accounts for newborns. The bill introduces Trump savings accounts depositing $1,000 for children born between January 1st, 25 and January 1st, 29 to be invested in the stock market for compounded growth, aiming to provide long-term financial benefits. 6, deficit reduction and spending cuts. The bill achieves $1.6 trillion in mandatory spending cuts described as the largest single reduction in U.S. history, targeting welfare programs like Medicaid and SNAP. It introduces work requirements for Medicaid and strengthens SNAP by requiring states to contribute more to administrative costs and tightening work requirement loopholes. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that these cuts will reduce federal spending by $1.7 trillion, though the bill increases the debt limit by $5 trillion with a projected $3.3 trillion increase in the national debt by 2034. That's the key part that Elon is stuck on. We'll have more on that in a second. 7, support for domestic industries and farmers. The bill promotes domestic manufacturing by renewing 100% immediate expensing and interest deductions, increasing the small business deduction, and offering tax breaks for building factories. It also supports farmers by doubling the estate tax exemption to protect generational lands and modernizing farm bill programs to enhance competitiveness in foreign markets. 8, national security and defense enhancements. Funding is provided for Trump's Golden Dome defense initiative aimed at revolutionizing national defense capabilities. The bill also boosts the U.S. Coast Guard and Naval Fleet with billions allocated to revitalize shipbuilding and the maritime industrial base. 9, air traffic control modernization. The legislation includes $12.5 billion to overhaul the nation's air traffic control system, replacing outdated infrastructure like radar and copper wiring, aligning with Trump's vision for a state-of-the-art system. 10, repeal of clean energy incentives. The bill phases out tax credits for electric vehicles, $7,500 for new EVs, $4,000 for used, by September 30th, 2025, and eliminates solar, wind, and, slow down for me a little bit, and support towards traditional energy sources like coal and oil, though nuclear power retains some breaks for projects starting before 2029. We're almost there, guys. 11, tax reforms targeting nonprofits and universities. The bill increases taxes on large university endowments from 1.4% to up to 21%, and subjects major nonprofits to corporate tax rates, aiming to curb perceived abuses from tax-exempt status. It also imposes new fees on remittance payments by undocumented immigrants and restricts their eligibility for tax credits and benefits like Obamacare and Medicare. 12, salt deduction increase. The state and local tax salt deduction cap is raised from $10,000 to $40,000 through 2029, benefiting higher earners in high state taxes like New York and California. This provision phases out incomes above $500,000 and reverts to $10,000 in 2030. Okay, now I'm taking the glasses off for effect. My God, what has happened to me? That was a lot right there, but that is the bulk of it. And I think most of you probably are feeling similarly to what I'm feeling as I read that, which is that those are all the things Donald Trump promised, right? Tax cuts for virtually everybody. That's pretty good. Cuts in some of the inefficient government programs that we have had, ensuring that you have to work to be on things like Medicaid. We'll have more on that in a second. Doing things like building the wall, and then the other things as it pertains to border security and being able to deport people and things of that nature. We didn't hire a gajillion more IRS agents, which is what the Biden administration wanted to do, right? Now, the thing that seems to be the sticking point between, say, the more libertarian types, the Rand Pauls, who I had on 2 weeks ago, and the Thomas Masseys, and say even someone like Elon, maybe it's about the EV mandate for Elon more so, but is that there is this $5 trillion increase in the debt ceiling. Both sides always do this. The Democrats increase the debt ceiling right at the end of Biden's term. Both sides always do it. What Elon wanted Trump to do was, all right, we're gonna help you through Doge, figure out all these ways to save, and when a bill comes to your desk, hopefully it's not gonna increase the debt ceiling. Trump felt differently about it. Who's right? I'm not exactly sure. But my basic feeling is this. I'm looking at that bill. It's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. I want to cut the deficit too, but the bill itself, putting more money back in your pocket, doing all of these things for small businesses, helping families, farmland, so that they can keep land and property intergenerationally is good. Cutting estate taxes, which is just a death tax, is good. These things are all good. Here's Trump firing back on the fear-mongering Dems because we played you a bunch of stuff last week. It's going to kill people. Everyone's going to die. Cats and dogs, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. They've developed a standard line, and we can't let them get away with it. Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, everybody's going to die. It's actually just the opposite. Everybody's going to live. This is just the opposite. And I just want you to know, if you see anything negative put out by Democrats, it's all a con job. And they said, and they compared it to just like the con job of Russia, 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 and all of the other things they did.
You know, he's right. Like, this is what they do. Russia, 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 and everyone's going to die. And sometimes even when it's on our side, let's say World War III is about to start, like this endless fear-mongering. That's what I'm always trying to scale us all back from, right? Because we can all fall into that trap. My God, they're doing this, and now this horrific thing's going to happen. I'm not for the debt increasing either. But maybe this thing, like, there's a lot of big, beautiful stuff in there. There really is. There really, really is. And you're going to have more money in your pocket because of it. Here's Scott Bessent. He went on CNN to talk to Dana Bash, and you know my feelings about Miss Bash. I'm always a little, what's going on with Dana Bash? There's not a lot going in the eyes. She doesn't seem truly evil, but she's not great. Here's Scott Bessent explaining that, yes, it has always been on both sides of the aisle that if you want some of these benefits, like Medicaid, that you should actually be working. Okay, it's not a big deal. Go.
I'm sure you've seen and heard a lot of the concern, including and especially from Republicans who are the most vocal in Congress, about the fact that those work requirements are going to be very cumbersome to actually prove, and it will inevitably force the people who need that Medicaid coverage off the rolls.
Well, first of all, the Republicans are not the most vocal on this. It is a group of Democrats who unfortunately seem to think that poor people are stupid. I don't think poor people are stupid. I think they have agency, and I think to have them register twice a year for these benefits, that it is not a burden. But these people who want to infantilize the poor and those who need these Medicaid benefits are alarmist.
Yeah. My impression of the Republican Party is that historically you've wanted to cut through the red tape and not create more red tape. But I do want to move on because...
Well, no. But we've also wanted to put in work requirements, which somehow that was very popular under Bill Clinton, was popular under President Obama, and this Democratic Party blew out the deficit in 2020, and they never want to bring it back.
The reason I'm always amazed by Dana is she never really seems like she believes anything she's saying, but she's just like an agent of the Democratic Party who's loosely pretending to be a journalist. Okay, so there were some interesting things there. Scott Bessent basically says, hey, we just want you to be able to check in twice a year. So if you're gonna get the benefits, you're gonna get some cash from us, could you just check in twice a year? Would that be such a problem? And she's like, well, that's red tape. And it's like, okay, so what are you saying? We should just give people money endlessly and they should never check in. Like, do you think that works? Well, I guess you're a Democrat. You probably do think that works because you want people poor and broken and dependent on you. That's number one. And then the more important part of that is that it was the Democrats that for years, because they were the party that supposedly wanted to help poor people more, they were for more Medicaid. But even Democrats like Bill Clinton, and if you don't remember Bill Clinton, if you're of a certain age, you may not remember Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was once president of the United States. He one time took an intern and he sat her on his lap and he put his cigar inside of her while he was on the phone with then Senate leader Trent Lott. But also he felt this way about Medicare and Medicaid.
This bill will help people to go to work so they can stop drawing a welfare check and start drawing a paycheck. It is now clearly better to go to work than to stay on welfare.
Put them to work. And make them want to go to work and make it reasonable for them to go to work. It'd be a mandatory work requirement for anyone receiving welfare.
I mostly want to talk about the cigar still, but in the spirit of the big, beautiful bill, we even threw in Biden right there because it's obvious. Asking people who are getting government benefits, could you check in twice a year? Could you try to get a job? Are you doing anything? Otherwise, you create if you give people, this is a human thing. This has nothing to do with race and it has nothing to do with class. If you just give a certain set of people stuff, just enough to kind of get by, it would be much harder for them to stop taking that and go get out there, right? If you say to a certain set of people, here's just enough money so you can get just enough kind of food to eat. But if you start doing some stuff, you're not going to get that anymore. Well, then people will be dependent endlessly. What you want to do is it's up to everyone what you want to do. But the basic idea is that you have some basic social safety net at the bottom so people don't really fall completely into destitution, right? You'd have some basic safety net, but then you want there to be some goals like, I don't know, checking in once a year. I do quarterly check-ins with you people. Is that too much? Right. 4 times a year I check in with them. How you doing? Everything okay? I'm paying you still. Are you doing all right? You get it. So everything they say now, because they are veering now more towards communism than whatever it is that the old Democratic Party was all about. You get it. We'll have more on this, the fight over the big, beautiful bill and of course, the deportation part of it, which has got everybody's panties in a bunch. But first, Goldco. Guys, did you know that Florida just legalized gold and silver as money? Yeah, that's right. The free state of Florida, my home state, recognizes gold and silver now as legal tender. Governor DeSantis put it best. This is about giving you the financial freedom to protect yourself against the declining dollar. With inflation, national debt soaring, and even U.S. credit downgrade, it's no wonder people are waking up. That's why I've partnered with Goldco, a top-tier precious metals company I trust. Want to protect your savings? Visit DaveLikesGold.com to get your free 2025 gold and silver kit. Once again, that's DaveLikesGold.com. Okay, so let's put aside the fiscal portion of it for a moment and focus on the thing that really gets everybody crazy, which of course is border and deportations. As an orange man said about 10 years ago, either you have a country or you don't. We suddenly have a country again, and some people are just not part of that country. That's how it works. Here's how The Economist is covering it. Donald the Deporter. And they're trying to make him look very scary there as the Statue of Liberty, and he's pointing away, don't come here. I think they were going after him, trying to make him look bad. It looks pretty based, as the kids say right there, like, get the hell out of here. We got some stuff we need to fix at the moment, and then we will figure out how many of you are allowed to come and under what conditions, et cetera, et cetera. Timu Obama, the man who spoke for 8 hours, I assume also without urinating, unless he was wearing a diaper, which is definitely possible. Here he is talking about this deportation machine and how scary and mean and big it's going to be.
By the deportation machine, a deportation machine that will be unleashed on steroids by this one big ugly bill. We know that, in fact, is the case. That's not hyperbole.
Yes. We're going to deport people because that's what Donald Trump ran on and said he was going to do, and that's what people voted for him. That's what every side always says they're going to do and then never does. Or actually, in some cases, people like Barack Obama do a bit of it, and you guys don't say jack shit, so suck it up, MFer. Here are 2 very ugly women talking about that stuff.
On the DHS part, this is really important because this big bad betrayal bill is not disconnected from what we're seeing with immigration on the streets. It actually supercharges ICE's activities in terrorizing local communities, in kidnapping and disappearing and deporting immigrants across this country. Right now, for detention, for ICE detention, we spend about $3.5 billion. The big bad betrayal bill increases that number to $45 billion. $45 billion from $3.5 billion. So across the board, and then there's separate money for ICE agents, for any number of pieces of the transportation, the deportation, all of that. So it is really essentially saying if whatever you see right now, Joy, multiply that by 10 to 12 times. That's what we're going to start seeing in terms of ICE agents terrorizing, disappearing, kidnapping immigrants, deporting them to third countries, holding them in incarceration facilities. These are jails now. These are not really civil detention centers, which is what they're supposed to be.
I mean, concentration camps is what I call them. We just looked at that alligator one in Florida.
God, they are just like terrible, just terrible, terrible people. What do you think would be worse for a kid? So you're hanging out, you're an illegal, you're in a small room, bunch of kids in there, you've been trafficked, a bunch of bad stuff has happened to you. What would be worse? The door opens and it's an ICE agent, mask, the whole thing, or it's Jayapal. What would be more jarring for you to see? Jayapal would scare the shit, like a guy in a mask. Who is it? It's a guy in a mask. Of course, once again, she cannot make the distinction between legal and illegal. She never says illegal, right? And sorry, if you are illegal and you are here, we're not going to temporarily hold you in the Four Seasons, even though that's what we were doing under Democrat administrations, right? Luxury hotels were making bank on this. But sorry, no more. And they are not concentration camps, you vile, unemployed wench. Joy Reid, I'm talking about you. And if you want to know if all of this stuff is working or not, well, just the signal, right? It's just the signal that we sent beyond the granular stuff of sending ICE agents to go get people out. The signal that we sent to the world was don't come. Okay? And then people stopped coming. There should have been the Blue Chew ad right there too. Boy, it's just writing itself for me today. But here's Fox News' Bill Maloogian talking about the amount of illegals that are currently released into the United States, and it's a very, 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 very low number.
The Homeland Security Department released brand new data this week showing that in June, there were a record low number of both nationwide border encounters and illegal immigrant apprehensions at the southern border. Here's the craziest part. There were 0 illegal immigrants released into the U.S. You compare that to the highs under the Biden administration when we saw as many as 12,000 encounters per day.
So look, does everyone want to come? Yes. But if you tell them don't come, they don't come. And then they have to deal with that just on the other side of the border. Here's Lady Eyelashes getting everything wrong about what's happening.
As far as I'm concerned, you randomly kidnapping folk and you throwing them out of the country against their civil rights, against their constitutional rights. And frankly, how would they feel if some other country decided that they were going to just start throwing people randomly in our country? Like that is absolutely insane. So yes, all I got to say is y'all need to get these fools out of here. But
it's all so fake. The fake eyelashes, the hair flip, all of it. It's not random, lady. It's the reverse of random. It's targeted. Random would be if there were ICE agents just wandering around grabbing people. Now, I know you want people to think that, but that is not what is happening. They are taking illegals out because that's what their job is. By the way, if in another country there were illegal Americans, meaning let's just name a country. Each one of you, I want to name a country. Name a country, Connor. Ireland, El Salvador, France. If there were Americans in those countries and then those countries kicked them out and sent them back here, well, they're citizens of the United States. Even in Mexico, ladles and jelly spoons, they have had enough of this nonsense. So there's something really fascinating happening in Mexico right now. And over the weekend, it really came to a head. So in Mexico City, which has been very much gentrified, there's a lot of people from other countries, but often Americans, that are going into Mexico right now and setting up shop and living there and all of those things. There has been now massive protests against the foreigners coming to Mexico. So we usually think of it the other way, that it's somehow Mexico just sending all these people here so they can build our houses. But actually there are Americans and Europeans now moving to Mexico City. It's a cheaper place to live. It's actually pretty culturally fantastic and it's somewhat safe, particularly for a Mexican city. But now there are massive anti-immigrant protests in Mexico to get the Westerners out. Take a look at this.
People coming from other countries, mostly foreigners, trying to impose their culture, their prices, and displace Mexicans, the natives of these lands.
I'm here because gentrification is colonization, dispossession, and exploitation of our resources.
First off, easy on the makeup, dude. That's number one. Number two, isn't that interesting? We don't think about it that way. But every country is allowed to protect their identity. They are allowed to protect their values and their borders and everything else. And I don't understand exactly why, if you were frustrated that too many Americans were showing up in Mexico City, you would burn down a store in your own city. But these people are usually confused about things. But the general sort of meta version of it, I do get. You're allowed to have your country. Everyone's allowed to have their country and allowed to make decisions as to who comes in and when they come in and how long they're allowed to stay and everything else. So anyway, that's just an interesting backdrop because it really flips the script as to how we think of immigration when it comes to Mexico particularly. But anyway, let's get back to this funding of ICE. So again, Donald Trump passed a big, beautiful bill, passed the Senate, passed the Congress, doing exactly what he promised to do as president. These are not things that we're usually accustomed to having happen, a president and an administration doing something they said they were going to do. Here's hysterical leftist lunatic AOC over on Blue Sky, which is like Twitter for crazy people. Here she is saying, I don't think anyone is prepared for what they just did with ICE. This is not a simple budget increase. It is an explosion, making ICE bigger than the FBI, U.S. Bureau of Prisons, DEA, and others combined. It is setting up to make what's happening now look like child's play and people are disappearing. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that she's making up the size of the thing, but I don't care, actually. We voted for this. We're getting what we voted for. You care more about foreigners than you care about Americans, and suck it. Here's that noted lunatic who looks like a human Q-tip over on MSNBC, and he really wants to be spanked. He's a bad boy. Watch this.
And I don't say this lightly, but our country needs to be sanctioned. We are the bad guys on the world stage. We are a menace to not only free people everywhere, but we are a menace to peaceful people everywhere at this point. And I'm not even going to say that we've only been a menace for the past 3 or 4 months, right?
We're a menace. We're bad. Can't somebody just, thank you, sir. Can I have another? I should be clear. That was on Joy Reid's podcast. She was fired from MSNBC. I'm pretty sure he's still paid by them, but he went over there. But this, we're bad now. We're just so bad. You people are pathetic. Let's talk about Rumble Premium, and then we'll dive into a little bit of the schism this has caused on the right, because yes, Elon's going through with his promise and starting the America Party in light of Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. Free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to back down. We've always believed in empowering voices, no matter how unpopular, and now we're taking that fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their backs. But we're not here to fit a mold, we're here to defend free expression. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from creators like Russell Brand, Dr. Disrespect, Timcast, and the Mug Club with Crowder. It's more than a subscription, it's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off the annual plan using promo code Rubin. Visit rumble.com/premium/Rubin and claim your discount today. Whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching, your support helps keep free speech alive. All right, so where do we start the show today? This is a pro-America show. I want what is best for America. I love this freaking country. We're allowed to defend our country. We're allowed to have our culture and our views and our values and all of those things. It has nothing to do actually with skin color or anything else. It has to do with a set of ideas that is a uniquely American set of ideas. And we are bringing those things back. And it's a beautiful thing that it's happening to the backdrop of our 250th anniversary. However, what we also have to realize within that, put aside the sort of crazies and the communists and the Democrat Party and all of that stuff. I think you can put them in a bucket, let's say a bucket of deplorables. That's like kind of, we don't like America. On the other side of that, the wide tent side, we're going to have people with all sorts of views on all sorts of things. And what you want to do as an American is say, how do we incorporate as much of this as possible? Not the truly crazy communist stuff, but how do we take people with widely divergent viewpoints on, say, foreign policy, taxes, whatever it might be, and still fit them within something that looks like America. Well, we're seeing some divides right now, and I'm going to work very hard as I possibly can, to make sure that whatever's going on between the Trump and Elon fight is not, hopefully, to whatever extent I can affect anything, will not burn down the entire country. So Elon is not happy right now. He did not like the big, beautiful bill. I just read the 10 talking points, the 10 basic bullet points on the thing. I think it's pretty damn good. Not thrilled with the budget stuff either, or the increase of the deficit, but it kind of is what it is. So now what has sort of fueled this? Well, let's jump back to February, just a couple months ago. Here's Elon talking to Sean Hannity about the deficit and how important he felt cutting the deficit was.
I really want to emphasize to people that this is a very important point. If we don't solve the deficit, there won't be money for medical care. There won't be money for Social Security. We either solve the deficit, or all we'll be doing is paying debt. It's got to be solved, or there's no medical care, there's no Social Security, there's no nothing. It's got to be solved. It's not optional. America will go bankrupt if this is not done. That's why I'm here.
The president, Europe takes advantage of this.
And I'd like to also just send a message to, because as the president said, there's a lot of rich people out there. They should be caring more about the country, because the reason they should be caring more about the country is if America falls, what do you think is going to happen to your business? What do you think? Do you think you're going to be okay if the ship of America sinks? Of course not. What I'm doing here, what the president's doing, it's just long-term thinking. The ship of America must be strong. The ship of America cannot sink. If it sinks, we all sink with it.
Okay, so that's an interesting video, even body language, and there's a little talking over each other, and you can see that they don't necessarily see eye to eye on absolutely everything, right? Elon was basically a kind of default setting lefty, came around to the Trump thing, all of that, came in doing all this stuff with Doge, Trump giving him unbelievable authority to clean things up. He does a bang-up job of doing it. You can see what he cares about most there. Now, Trump, from a different perspective, he's now the president of the United States. He has to try to figure out a whole lot of things. Elon is kind of laser focused on deficit reduction, right? And that's good, that's fine. Trump is trying to do let's say a panoply of things, right? With tax cuts and building the wall and everything else. So they may not, or it's not even may not, they don't see exactly eye to eye on the role of government right at this very moment. But the key part is, do they both love the country? Obviously. Is there a reason that the force kind of drew them together over the last 2 years? Clearly. And the question is, how do we hold that thing? Well, it's going to be a little bit tough. So now let me get you caught up over the last couple days. This is a June 30th tweet from Elon. If this, and this is obviously from before the bill got passed. If this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican uniparty so the people can actually have a voice. Now let me follow up with another tweet by Elon. It is obvious with the insane spending of this bill, which increases the debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion, that we live in a one-party country, the Porky Pig Party. Time for a new political party that actually cares about the people. And then he continued on the Twitter machine. And this was on July 4th. Independence Day is the perfect time to ask you if you want independence from the two-party, some would say uniparty system. Should we create an America Party? And you can see 65% of the people said yes, 34% no. Now, I should note, that's with about 1.2 million votes on X. We have no idea how many of those people are real and not bots. We have no idea how many of them are actually American citizens or anything else. And it's not a huge sampling, right? We have about 350 million people in this country. However, Elon saw the results on that. They went the way he wanted. And he wrote this: by a factor of 2 to 1, you want a new political party and you shall have it. When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom. And then he wrote this also to explain a little bit more on the sort of granular specifics of how he would operate this new party. He said one way to execute on this would be to laser focus on just 2 or 3 Senate seats and 8 to 10 House districts. Given the razor-thin legislative margins, that would be enough to serve as the deciding vote on contentious laws, ensuring that they will serve the true will of the people. Now, we'll get into Trump's response in just a second. Connor, can you put that tweet back up for a second? Because it's interesting that he's sort of showing you the playbook right now. What he wants to do is, he's not saying I have to create a party that will be as big as the Democrat Party or as big and influential as the Republican Party. What he's saying is, if I can basically not steal, but if I can take a couple senators, we can win a couple Senate seats here and a few more House seats over here. In essence, what you could do is sort of change us a bit more instead of in a two-party system, which is what we are, whether you like it or not. Yes, we've got the useless Libertarian Party and a couple other Green Party and some marginal other stuff. But if you could inject enough cash and get enough momentum behind a third party, that it doesn't have to be huge, it just has to be enough to grab a couple people, because we know that all of our votes come down to razor-thin margins, right? So then you could have an extraordinary amount of power by just controlling a few seats. Now, in some sense, I could see why that is actually good for a party. Boy, you don't have to do a lot in some way, but you're ultimately the spoiler. So you get a lot of power, and you could probably get a lot of concessions from people along the way. Now, of course, the other side of that is what most of Europe has, which is when you create these coalition governments, these tiny parties that join coalitions end up with huge amount of power, because every time something controversial is about to be passed, they can be like, all right, we're getting out of here. A great example of this is what's going on right now in the Netherlands, because Geert Wilders, who ran on a very similar to Donald Trump policy and has very similar hair, he got into a coalition government with leftist parties. And then basically they were like, sorry, you're not going to kick anybody out. We're not going to protect our borders or anything else. And he had to collapse his government. So in some sense, I get Elon's angle here, but you might be careful with what you're trying to do, because if you kind of fracture the Republican Party, because anyone that's going to go to this America Party is going to come from the Republicans, right? It's not coming from the Democrats want to destroy the country. They're not for America at this point. So who are you peeling off? Are you peeling off? If your whole thing is the deficit, is there some Democrat out there that's like, I'm on board all of this crazy stuff, but we just spend too much. I'm joining the America Party. No, you're going to get the libertarian wing of the Republican Party, thus fracturing the Republican Party, leaving us with Democrats. Ugh. This is what Donald Trump had to say about it on Truth. I'm saddened to watch Elon Musk go completely off the rails, essentially becoming a train wreck over the past 5 weeks. He even wants to start a third political party, despite the fact that they have never succeeded in the United States. The system seems not designed for them. The one thing third parties are good for is the creation of complete and total disruption and chaos, and we've had enough of that with the radical left Democrats who have lost their confidence and their minds. Republicans, on the other hand, are a smooth-running machine that just passed the biggest bill of its kind in the history of our country. It's a great bill, but unfortunately for Elon, it eliminates the ridiculous electric vehicle mandate, which would have forced everyone to buy an electric car in a short period of time. I've been strongly opposed to this from the very beginning. People are now allowed to buy whatever they want, gasoline-powered, hybrids, which are doing very well, or new technologies as they come about. No more EV mandate. I've campaigned on this for 2 years, and quite honestly, when Elon gave me his total and unquestioned endorsement, I asked him whether or not he knew that I was going to terminate the EV mandate. It was in every speech I made and in every conversation I had. He had no problems with that, and I was very surprised. Additionally, Elon asked that one of his close friends run NASA, and while I thought his friend was very good, I was surprised to learn that he was a blue-blooded Democrat who had never contributed to a Republican before. Elon probably was also. I also thought it inappropriate that a very close friend of Elon, who is in the space business, run NASA when NASA is such a big part of Elon's corporate life. My number one charge is to protect the American people. Okay, so let's sort of get rid of the stuff at the end there, which is like a little insider stuff, and who knows about this NASA guy. But okay, so then either this comes down to purely the deficit stuff, or what Trump is sort of more so implying there is that this is really about getting rid of the EV mandate, and that's going to hurt Tesla and whatever. Look, I don't know what the truth is. I believe Elon when he says that his number one priority is the deficit. You can hear him in that moment in the Oval Office, like the care in his voice about what would happen if we just become an endless debtor nation, how it's not good for anybody. Is it about the EVs to some extent? Maybe. Did Trump and Elon create what would you say? Did they create a tag team together that was going to be too tough to hold in the long term? Perhaps. But again, where did I start this show? It was, I want this thing to hold. I want what is best for America. And while we have so much good stuff happening right now, the worst thing that could happen is if we fray it, right? There are enemies here. We have enemies that walk amongst us with the progressives and the communists and everything else. What we don't need right now is a split that could divide those of us on the right who are actually fixing the country. And here's Scott Jennings on that.
Than it looks to start a political party, and we'll see where they go with it. My humble advice to Elon, who I admire very much actually, is that you may be dividing the forces of people who want to save Western civilization to the benefit of the people who don't. And so to the extent that this effort would divide conservatives and Republicans against each other, that would be helpful, because it would leave the country to people who want unfettered immigration, who don't share your fiscal views, and so on and so forth. So we'll see where it goes. I sort of hope everybody puts the band back together the way they had it back in 2024, because when everybody was working together, things worked quite well.
I'm just curious, if they're on the side of Western civilization, what's the other civilization that people want?
Not Western civilization.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. I think people.
Terrible.
I think civilization.
Values, not Western civilization.
I think there's a lot.
All right. Well, I'm with Scott on that. That really is the question. Let's say you believe that Trump's intentions are the best possible, right? So Trump's intentions are, I want to do what's best for America, and I think this bill, and unfortunately having to add some deficit, this is the best thing for America. And I do think that's right. And as I even said during all of the Iran stuff, Trump deserves, I think, as much of a leash as possible here. He has been so right about so much while fighting so many bad forces for so long that Trump deserves, I think, just the runway on that. So let's pretend for a second that you think Trump's intentions are good, and let's pretend that Elon's intentions are good too, that this isn't about just like making more money because of an EV mandate, that he really thinks that the deficit thing here. Well, what is Scott saying there? The worst thing that could happen is that these guys, the band breaks up, and then what happens? You split that, and then the people who are not for Western civilization, the people who are not for all of the goodness that we constantly talk about here, will usher in a wave that will be the most anti-American wave probably in this country's 250-year history. And that will be the problem. So look, I will continue to try to heal this thing. I'm going to reach out to Elon today. We've chatted on and off about getting him back on the show to discuss his angle on this. We'll reach out to the Trump administration to talk about it and see, because look, the idea of should we have more parties, should there be more parties in general, I can get on board that idea, at least in the philosophical sense. But at this very moment, after everything we've lived through in the last 10 years, between COVID and all of the woke craziness, are we about to let deficit fights blow up all of the goodness that's the only bulwark against all of the craziness, so that we end up with a loony Democrat in office? Like, is that where we want to be? So hopefully calmer heads prevail here. We'll see. I do want to cover what's happened in Texas a little bit, because there's really just an unbelievably horrific flash flood occurred in Texas, and the rescue is still ongoing right now, and it's really just beyond imagination. So let me get you updated from the Daily Wire here. Multiple people are reportedly dead in Central Texas after a flash flood raised the Guadalupe River to its second highest recorded level in history on Friday morning. This is a very dangerous and life-threatening flood event along the Guadalupe River. Moved to higher ground, the National Weather Service in Austin and San Antonio stated. More than 14 inches of rain have fallen in portions of San Angelo in the last 24 hours, Fox West Texas reported at 9 a.m. Friday. This is a catastrophic flooding event in Kerr County. The Kerr County Sheriff's Office posted on Facebook. We can confirm fatalities, but will not release further information until next of kin are notified. Our office is working with a wide variety of local and state agencies to respond to calls and rescues. The entire county is an extremely active scene. Residents are encouraged to shelter in place and not attempt to travel. Those near creeks, streams, and the Guadalupe River should immediately move to higher ground. And this is so a lot of this is happening right now. It's unbelievably horrific. A girls' camp basically was washed away. We'll have more on that in a second. But here's a young kid explaining how he and his brothers survived some of these floodwaters. Just incredible.
I'm one of the campers from Camp Lahana, one of the camps that flooded, and I had a first-hand view of the flood, and so the cabins were flooding and the walls were like they broke down. and all of the campers in those cabins had to go up on the rafters, and they had to wait there until they could swim out. And my brother here, he had to swim out of his cabin.
I mean, it's just incredible. A young kid has to deal with this. So did you see what it said on the left there? So the water went from 0 to 27 feet in just about 4 hours. It's beyond imagination. Listen to this video of a family recounting how the father died while saving his fiancée, children, and mom.
That a hero, and that will never gone unnoticed.
It just started pouring in. We had to fight the door to get it closed just so that too much didn't come in. And we ran back to the room and we started calling 911.
Julian's fiancée, Christina Wilson, says after 20 minutes, the water was up to their knees. Julian punching open a window to try and get her, their children, and his mother to the roof.
It severed his artery in his arm, almost cut it clean off.
Christina says they kept calling 911, but no one came in time to save him.
About 6 o'clock, my husband was dead. He had lost all of it, all his blood. He looked at me and the kids and my mother-in-law, and he was like, sorry, I'm not going to make it. I love y'all.
Christina says she found her fiancé after the water receded, but his body wasn't recovered for hours. Now, loved ones remember the man they call a hero.
He was the hero out of this story.
Especially when they told him my brother is dying. They should have went to him first. I mean, that's how.
There's a hero. You know, we're so used to knowing the names of terrible people, right? The Democrats love terrible people. Why do we know all the names of all the illegals who come here and do horrible things? And maybe we should start knowing the names of some of the good people. I thought this image kind of captures the whole thing. Here's just a first responder, just amidst the chaos. They were pulling out bodies and all sorts of stuff. But the way I want to turn this story, which again, it's unfolding right now, it's really horrific. I'll put up, I donated over the weekend. We'll put up, oh, yeah, here we go. Well, let's just do it now. I donated here. So if you're looking to donate, if you have the means, the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country, it's the Kerr County Flood Relief Fund. You can do that there, and we'll put a link in the description. But, to connect this sort of to what we've been talking about, and you'll see how, unfortunately, everything becomes political, it does feel like right now we have better, competent people in charge. Remember when here in Florida, we had that horrific Category 5 Hurricane Ian storm in Southwest Florida, and it was like, as bad as it is, there's always going to be acts of God. There's always going to be bad things. The best we can do is hopefully have competent people in charge, and that's what we have here, so we could rebuild roads quickly, so we could get electricians and engineers out there to fix transformers and down power beams and all those things. Like, the best you can do is be prepared, and hopefully have good people in charge that are going to help the proper people do the jobs that they're supposed to do. Well, fortunately, I think we have that right now. Kirsty Noem went right down there, and here she is doing everything she can to make sure that we're going to rescue as many people as possible.
And I'll be here. I'm going to go up to the camp, Mystic, and I'm going to go around town and spend some time here today and make sure that when I am calling and talking to the president throughout the day, that he has timely information and that the requests that are coming here from the leadership on the ground are met immediately, and that we can take care of these families and take care of these folks right away. We do know the number one priority now is people, is making sure we're finding people as fast as possible and we're returning them to their families. And then also, throughout the process, we'll get into what damage was done to public infrastructure, what may have been done to, I know we have 1,800 people that are still without power. What I understand is people still have water, but we do have damage to bridges and to roads. Thankfully, dams held. But all of that is an assessment that we'll continue to work with you on to make sure that you recover as quickly as possible.
All right, so again, this is all unfolding, but it's just like, yeah, we have competent people in charge. Like, do you really think something's going to come across her desk and she's not going to do the best she can to help, while the Democrats would normally, I don't see, I can even fall into that trap. But look what happens. Look how everything ends up being about politics. Democrat Representative Joaquin Castro was on with Dana Bash, and somehow they made this about climate change.
How much do you think the changing climate is part of what we are seeing go on here? Not just what we're seeing in the pictures that we're showing on the screen, but even the flood that you talked about in San Antonio in June.
No, I think climate change is obviously a part of it. These floods are happening more often.
It's not obviously a part of it. And Dana Bash, while there's an ongoing rescue, you should be embarrassed that you even answered the question. But I get it. You work at CNN. You're beyond embarrassment. at this point. But back to the competency thing. Here's Donald Trump on Truth Social. The Trump administration is working with state and local officials on the ground in Texas to respond in response to the tragic flooding that took place yesterday. Our Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, will be there shortly. Melania and I are praying for all of the families impacted by this horrible tragedy. Our brave first responders are on site doing doing what they do best. God bless the families and God bless Texas. So how do we wrap this up? Because obviously this is last couple minutes. I mean, it's unfolding right now. It sounds like at least 80 people are dead. It's quite horrific. I would say hopefully we do have good people in charge, and hopefully they're going to do the best they can, and I actually do believe that. So I thought we'd end with this because Trump is doing a lot at once. He's getting the big, beautiful bill signed. He's doing all of the stuff as it relates to the trade deals. We just had a 12-day war with Iran that we won, and we only dropped, I think, 6 bombs. We were involved for about 5 minutes. But the world is reordering, and to that point, Bibi Netanyahu is in D.C. today. I think he's about to land any moment right now. Maybe he has during the show. And here is Trump talking about a bright future for the Middle East.
What's your message going to be to Netanyahu tomorrow? Well, we're working on a lot of things with Israel, and one of the things is probably a permanent deal with Iran. In other words, they have to give up all of the things that you know so well. What will your message be on Gaza to Netanyahu? I think we're close to a deal on Gaza. We could have it this week.
And that's the hope, guys. The hope is that we have positive, forward-thinking, serious people in charge. I think you know that I include Donald Trump on that list, and that through that, you can get deals done. You can make the unthinkable happen. You could not get us into thermonuclear war 3, instead get it to be a 12-day war, and that maybe Gaza will be taken care of too, and that we could have a more peaceful region there. Hopefully when there's tragedies here at home, like we're having in Texas right now, we have the best people with the best resources ready to roll. And that is the America that we can all be proud of as she rolls into 250. Guys, if you did not see it, one of my favorite people, look, a lot of people in this biz, they come and go. Some of them you love for a while and then you realize they're nuts. Some of them are underdogs and some of them are dark horses and everything else. But one of my true favorites along the ride, just as a broadcaster and as a human being, is Glenn Beck. And our interview that went up with him on Saturday, I think it has over 500,000 views already. And it's just we do a little bit of everything. If you haven't seen it, please do. And he had broke news, which is that he's moving to Florida. I mean, the guy's in Texas and he's moving to Florida, which I thought was quite interesting. And I'm very happy to hear that. So if you haven't checked that out, you can do that. And we've got a post-game show in 30 seconds at rubinreport.locals.com. Do we have the video? We do. We did a little something. Joseph is telling me this might be AI. We did this on the fly during the show. I have not seen it. Let's see what happens here.
Sanction me, daddy. Sanction me, daddy. Sanction me harder, daddy. Oh, sanction me like a bad little Democrat. Ow, sanction me. Sanction me, daddy. Sanction me, daddy. Sanction me harder, daddy. Oh, sanction me like a bad little Democrat.
That's good. That's good. All right, that's the show. Post game in a minute. Ciao.
A deportation machine that will be unleashed on steroids by this one big ugly bill.